In the mid-1920s, the practical implementation of the doctrine of building socialism began in the USSR. It included three main parts: industrialization, that is the accelerated transformation of the country from an agricultural one to an industrialized one; collectivization, creation of socialist collective agriculture; the Cultural Revolution, the creation of a system of education, science, culture. In December 1925, the course for industrialization was taken. The reason for industrialization: weak industry that couldn't provide the country with means to establish socialism, the dominance of agriculture, the isolation of the country from other countries, especially economic backwardness from Western countries, and poor military defense under the threat of war. In December 1927, a course was taken for collectivization, which ended in 1932. The task of collectivization: to destroy the class, private property, and create collective farms to settle the Kazakhs. The method of carrying out was violent and forced. It is important to explore this topic because those two stages had a significant lasting impact on our history in terms of economy and politics. So how they were interconnected in our history?
So the first statement is financing of industrialization and supply of fast-growing cities toward collectivization. For the implementation of forced industrialization, the state needed funds. They could be obtained by exporting. However, the USSR then supplied only raw materials and agriculture products to the market. In this situation, the issue of increasing the marketability of agriculture has become particularly acute. The few collective farms that exist allowed government to conclude that this type of organization of agriculture production in a planned economy has the greatest marketability. After analyzing the available data, Stalin saw here a reserve for improving the efficiency of agriculture. The 15th Congress of the KPSU, held in December 1927, identified as a priority the unification and transformation of small individual farms into large collective associations, based on new technology and the gradual displacement of kulaks from the sphere of economic activity toward the use of economic methods. If in 1928 2% of all farms in the Republic were collectivized, then on April 1st, 1930, 50.5% of farms. In August 1931, a new criterion for completing the terms of collectivization was defined. During the current year, up to 70% of peasant farms should be merged into collective farms. In most national regions, including Kazakhstan, the collective farm system was formed by 1932 to 1933.
Statement number 2. Settlement of Kazakhs and dispossession as a part of the creation of the proletariat for industrialization. In order to strengthen the material base of the collective farms being created due to the confiscation of kulak property since the beginning of 1930, the mass campaign for dekulakization has intensified, which has turned into a means of collectivization, the main method of accelerating its pace. For the final ruin of the prosperous part of the peasantry, on August 27, 1928, the CIC and the SNK of the Kazakh SSR adopted a resolution on the confiscation of bai farms. In the process of confiscation, 1,000 bais were evicted, 145,000 heads of cattle were expropriated, which were distributed between collective farms and poor farm laborers. The confiscated agricultural implements were transferred to 877 collective farms and 24,491 individual farms. Tight deadlines and high rates of collectivization contributed to the use of repressive measures against peasants who did not want to join collective farms. Instead of the planned agricultural cartels and partnerships for land cultivation and mowing, collective farms were created, in which cattle, buildings and property of peasants were subject to socialization. The policy of dispossession of kulaks resulted in a policy of dispossession of peasants. They actually confiscated property and subjected the middle and poor to repression.
Simultaneously, the ongoing process of collectivization and studentization have destroyed the traditional economic system and led to tragic consequences. The lack of feed and proper condition for the maintenance of confiscated livestock led to its mass death and actual destruction. By February 1932, 87% of collective farms and 51.8% of sole proprietors had completely lost their livestock. In total, in Kazakhstan, 2.3 heads of cattle accounted for one farm, about 35 heads in 1929. The demographic catastrophe was also caused by the terrible famine of 1930 to 1933, which was a natural result of forceful collectivization. On the eve of the Kazakh tragedy, the number of residents of the Republic was 6,200 people. 2,100 people became victims, also including 1,750 Kazakh population. The country's leadership, headed by Stalin, knew about the causes of famine and its catastrophic consequences. This is evidenced by surviving documents. Kalachokhin was informed about the famine in a letter by figures of the Republic Bitmusuyapov, Katavlin, Davletkaliyev, Altınbekov, and Kuanышев. Letter of 5.
The continuous collectivization, the destruction of the age-old way of life, the forced generalization of livestock and property, the impoverishment of the village, hunger, oppression, caused a mass protest from the rural population, which manifested itself both in passive, leaving for the city and construction sites, migrating to other regions and adjacent territories, and in active forms, murders of active supporters of the collective farm movement's uprisings. In 1929-1931 alone, 372 uprisings took place, in which over 80,000 people participated. In February-May 1930, uprisings swept the Semipalatinsk district. The population of Ust-Kamenogorsk, Zыряновsk, Shamonakhainski, Katon-Karagay districts opposed anti-peasant repressions. On February 2, 1930, one of the largest uprisings began, the Suzak uprising in the Syrdarya district, where 400 rebels were killed and 200 people were arrested.
Conclusion. The results of industrialization are the next. Non-ferrous metallurgy has become the main industry. The growth of the working class, urbanization, the decline in the proportion of Kazakhs, and the decline of agriculture. Consequences of collectivization. Hunger and jute, migration of people, urbanization and settling of Kazakhs, and destruction of the economic way of life of Kazakhs. The price of industrialization was hunger and ruin of the peasants who paid tribute for the needs of industrialization and experienced the terrible consequences of forced collectivization. Enormous strain on the working people, repressive policies towards those thanks to whom selfless labor and powerful industrial potential was created.